Hey there everyone, Paler here, and welcome back. So, it's been a little while. Before we dive into it too far, let me explain what's been going on. I have not stopped making videos for YouTube. This is still just a passion project of mine, but what did happen was work got in the way. Work really got in the way. I had several weeks there where I was out of town quite a bit for work, and I just haven't had much time to play anything other than Overwatch. I'm getting my Overwatch time in, and as you've noticed, I don't do really a lot of Overwatch coverage on the channel. That might be changing. I don't know if I'm going to do a lot of Overwatch coverage on it, but I might start dabbling in it. The initial hesitation was market saturation. There's a lot of people covering Overwatch, and not everyone wants to see it. So I've held off for now, but since it is the game I predominantly play, I probably should cover it a little bit. But I am back, so the schedule's kind of calmed down now a little bit. I'm back to making videos again. My objective is roughly 2 videos a week, is what I'm aiming for, give or take. So, yeah, here's the first one of this week, and we'll see how it goes from there. I do want to get back into World of Warship some more. I do want to do a review of the Scharnhorst, an awesome battleship, but one that takes a bit of a select play style to play with, but it is a very good battleship. Yeah, so I am back. I've been fighting allergies. We recently rescued a cat at my house, and turns out I'm allergic to cats, apparently. I did not know this. I've never had a cat. But, yeah, she's been destroying my allergies, which just makes creating a video that lasts 15 minutes or whatever, it makes it real tough. So, if there's any sudden cuts or edits in this video, it means I had to stop because I sneezed and had to edit that out. That's what all that is about. Alright, yeah, so this is No Man's Sky. Now, I'm not going to go into, hey, what's that, No Man's Sky? Unless you've been living under a rock, you know what No Man's Sky is. What I want to talk about today with No Man's Sky is, first, I am going to give a bit of my opinions, my impressions on the game, and then I want to talk about one way that I think looking at No Man's Sky could do, like, one notable, it would be a moderately heavy change, but I think it would be a significant change to make the game better. But it is also something future survival-based games, I think, could learn from. So those are going to be what I'm going to cover mostly today. So what are my opinions on No Man's Sky? Well, I'm actually a little more positive about it than a lot of people are. Now, make no mistake, No Man's Sky under-delivers massively. It doesn't come close to what was even hinted at possibly being in the game, and, you know, there's many elements missing. I'm not going to go into all those elements. There's lots of videos out there already damning the game for that reason, and because it's missing those things, the game is somewhat disappointing. Absolutely, there are some very disappointing elements within this game, yet I still kind of like it, but I think I know why I like it. For me, I've been trying to figure out what term to use to describe this, but I don't really have a good one. I tend to play somewhat stressful games. I don't like that term for it because I don't think video games should be stressful. If you're getting stressed out, you know, you're in the wrong medium for that. You should let life stress you out, let video games calm you down. But I play games like Overwatch, Dark Souls, you know, games that you have to be involved on your toes playing to do well. You can't really just zen out on them, just kind of do whatever, not pay attention. If you're doing that in Dark Souls, you're going to die. If you're doing that in Overwatch, you're probably going to die a lot and become pretty frustrated. So those are the type of games I normally play. Even some of the more common games I've been playing recently, like RimWorld. Well, RimWorld on the surface seems like it could be an easy, relaxing game. Because of how quickly everything can go wrong and everyone can die, it's actually rather stressful. So, on a night after I get done with Overwatch and I've had nothing but bad luck with Overwatch, you know, I actually kind of find coming here to No Man's Sky and wandering around for an hour just doing really nothing is actually kind of calming, kind of zen within the video game world. And for that reason, I kind of like No Man's Sky. This doesn't dismiss the problems it has. It has a lot of big problems, starting off with what we mentioned earlier, a lot of missing promised or hinted at features. It's also kind of annoying with its energy system. It's kind of annoying with its bars. It doesn't have near the depth that any of us really hoped it would. But despite all those things, I kind of like it. Now, I do think the very first and the biggest thing we need to talk about, though, is the price. This is probably, in my opinion, the biggest overall failure of the game. The game was never, I don't think the game ever should have been $60. And I don't think they originally intended it to be $60. I think if you go back and watch when the game was first revealed, I think, Hello Games, they're known for the Joe Danger series. That's what they cut their teeth on. They're small little indie titles. I don't think they ever planned to develop a $60 AAA, I'm doing air quotes there, title. I think once Sony saw the tech demo and bought the console exclusivity rights for it, I think that is when it became a $60 game. I put most of that blame on Sony, but it doesn't really matter who you blame. It never should have happened. It should not have been a $60 game. Oh, let me also explain. The reason I'm running around on foot here rather than using my ship, for some reason, when I'm in my ship and I start cruising it over any type of speed, the game doesn't stutter, but my videos stutter. Like when it's loading in a new cluster and the video has little 4 or 5 second sections just missing when I'm doing that. So I'm staying on foot here for this part here. So you're not going to see any spaceship combat. This is actually my 4th time recording this. It's going to be my 2nd time rendering and uploading it as I try to find a way to avoid that stuttering. Yeah, whoops, I didn't mean to use that. Anyway. That is why we are on foot. There's something up there? How far away is it? 2 minutes? Alright, we'll head that way next. Did I activate this? No, I did not. I'm actually kind of looking for aluminum too. I know those guys floating up there in the air is copper, so that's not aluminum. Yeah, that's what's going on. So that's the first big mistake. And whoever you put the blame on, it doesn't really matter. But once they decided to go $60, you now get compared to the likes of games like Witcher 3, Grand Theft Auto, Overwatch was $60 on console, $50 on PC. There's just so many games, so much expected title, and this game obviously just does not have it. Had this game been $30, people would still be annoyed at how it underdelivers on promised or hinted at possible items, but I think they'd be a lot more forgiving of it, it's disappointing, but it was only $30 and there were some cool elements in it. I think they'd be okay with it. Not okay with it, but more forgiving about it, as I hinted at. That's the first mistake. The second mistake, and what I think is the bigger mistake, and this is more what I wanted to get at earlier on, is the energy systems. You just saw me restoring my thermal protection. I also restored my life support systems there. And this is where I think the game, and this is where a lot of people think the game fall apart. But I think if we look at this, I think we can identify actually a surprisingly good way that they could fix the system and turn it into a much better game, though probably a little more niche game. I gotta be honest, it'll probably be more niche with what I'm about to propose. So what I'm talking about, if you haven't played No Man's Sky, if you look down in the left-hand corner, you see a bar with like a life sign meter. That's my life support, and the one above that is thermal protection. If you're on a radioactive planet, it's radioactive protection or radiation protection. If you're on a hot planet, it's still thermal protection, but it goes the other way. Basically, it protects you from whatever environment that you're in. It's your spacesuit. So there's those bars. You also then have similar bars on your spaceship. So here are my launch thrusters. Basically, every time you take off and land from non-designated ground. By this, I mean not a landing pad, not a space station, not a landing beacon, but just like if I landed anywhere out in the open, every time you do that, you use 25%. So every 4th takeoff, you need to renew your landing and take off, whatever you want to call that, the landing gear in order to do that. You then have a warp drive that constantly uses fuel. You then have a hyperdrive that constantly uses fuel. All these things tie in. These are all bars that all have minute systems that you're constantly recharging. The big ones, though, are the life support, the thermal protection, and some people are actually going to complain about the mining gun here I'm using. If I find something else to mine, here, we'll just shoot this. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, there's a percentage there. It's going to slowly go down, 71%. And when that gets low, you have to come in here, come over to the multi-tool. Whoops, that was already the multi-tool. Come into the mining beam, and then you have to recharge it with whatever. We'll go ahead and we'll use carbon. I will actually give the multi-tool one a little bit of a pass. I don't like the multi-tool one. Let me be very clear. But I think the multi-tool one could be fixed very easily by just giving it a reload mechanic. Similar to what I have right here with the bolt caster. See, I fire the bolt caster a few times, I can reload it. Just automatic. Where did that beacon go? It's right over this hump here. And you know, the multi-tool itself, the mining laser, if they would just go ahead and modify in, and maybe mods will do this at some point, modify in a way that you give it priorities. You go in and tell it, all right, when I hit the R button, I want you to reload, recharge, based first on using plutonium, second on using carbon, on using thanium-9. And then that system, boom, would be perfectly fine, because you would still be able to use the gun, and rather than go into your menu, just hit R, boom, 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 boom. They also need to do that things with like the ship lasers, the ship shields. Those things need to be modified into a key press in order to reload them. Now, these other bars, though, aren't something that you would directly reload. Your thermal protection, your life support systems, those probably wouldn't make quite as much sense with an R button. This also pertains to, as I said, this is something that could go into a lot of different systems, like, say, the food system in Minecraft. And I'll explain on that a little bit more here in a moment. But for this system here, what it is right now, again, if you have not played the game, essentially, depending on the hostility of your planet, the hostility of the environment of your planet, your system drains at different speeds. In a very hospitable world, your life support system from full charge lasts roughly about 30 minutes. Then at 30 minutes, you got to recharge it or you start to die. Now, the problem is it starts annoying you at 75%, then it annoys you again at 50%, then it annoys you again at 25%. So about every 8-10 minutes or so, it's bugging you depending on the type of world you're on and saying, hey, recharge me, recharge me, recharge me. And that gets old really, really quick. And this caused some really big design decisions in what the game did. So your life support system, if I come in here, gets recharged by basically any of these red materials, thanium-9, plutonium, or carbon. And because the system drains so quickly, in order to compensate and so that you don't just die all the time, the game had to be modified where those three elements show up everywhere on all the planets in very heavy amounts. So when I do this little pulse scan here, you'll see these red lightning bolts, these red triangles, or diamonds. Yeah, I do know the difference between a diamond and a triangle, but red diamonds with lightning bolts on them. These are all different energy sources for recharging my energy meter. This down here is probably going to be a big stack of plutonium. Looks like it's in a cave. But if I get down to it, it's probably a big thing of plutonium I can mine up. And so what the game has done is it gave you a system with a very short life expectancy, short duration, and to compensate for that so you're not constantly dying, it gave you all these elements in massive abundance all around the planets. And so very quickly, within the first couple of hours of playing the game, the system goes from this somewhat survival mechanic into what I call the snooze alarm. It's like the snooze alarm on your alarm clock. It just, every 10 minutes, it bugs you. Just every 10 minutes, it's like, hey, dummy, don't forget to do this, don't forget to do that. And it's not fun. It just very, very quickly becomes an annoyance rather than something that deepens the gameplay. Now, that's the complaint a lot of people have made. I agree with it and everything. I didn't come here to rehash what everyone else was going to say. What I think could be actually pretty awesome, and something I'd love to see in more games like this, would be take the system, expand on it, make it important, but make it more unique. Not unique, more thought out. What would happen if, let's be just even remotely realistic. In real life, if we were going to make a system, a life support system for a spaceship, you know, and obviously we have these spacesuits, but for like the futuristic things, 12 hours, 8 hours, 6 hour minimum would be like the expected duration that it would last, right? So what if this system was replaced that the life support system lasted 6 hours of real world time, or 8 hours of real world time, or 12 hours of real world time? What would happen if they did that? Well, first of all, you would no longer need to worry about these resources nearly as much, right? You could go ahead and you no longer need to populate all the worlds with all these resources, because now you have a window where you can go out and you can actually, you know, hunt for these without dying within 30 minutes. You have an open window. So all of a sudden they can create more unique planets because they can remove some of these common elements from all the planets. You also now have a free window for the character that you can go out and actually do some exploring without constantly being harassed by these elements. And all this ties together where what they could do is they could take it and plutonium, which is a rarer material on Earth, they could make it a rarer material. Maybe it's something that when you jump into a new system, I'm just letting my thermal protection recharge a little bit. What they could do is when you jump into a new solar system, maybe 1 in 3 planets actually has plutonium on it. So what you have to do is you have to spend at least your first bit of time running around trying to find a plutonium source. And once you do, you can stockpile enough of it for, 3 recharges in your system. And if you stockpile 3 recharges, that's enough for, if we're doing 8 hours, that's a full day's 24-hour of real world time that you could play the game without having to worry about it again. Now, obviously, after you get down to about 16, 18 hours used up, then you start looking for it, but it gives you freedom. So first of all, it adds depth because you actually have to go hunting for this rare material. Second of all, after you found it, it gives you freedom to experience other elements in the game. I think this would cause a much deeper, more enjoyable experience. If we take this outside of this game, let's go to Minecraft, like I said earlier. What if Minecraft, if you've played Minecraft Survival at all, one of the big things that happens in that game is when you first start out in survival mode early on, your number one objective almost always is to find a source of food. Your food meter is going to drain reasonably fast, especially if you're doing any type of sprinting. So if you don't like where you spawn and you got to run towards some hills, mountains, forest, whatever, you spend any amount of time sprinting, very quickly your character's hungry, then you take damage and you no longer heal, and then eventually you are dead, right? So the food is super important. Well, very quickly though, within, an hour or so of gameplay, maybe 2, you've established a renewable food resource. You've gone ahead and you've either tamed a bunch of chickens, cows, set up a crop farm where you can get, corn or whatever, and almost overnight, you go from something that is an amazing annoyance and nuisance because it's constantly harassing you because you don't have any of it, to where you run around with a stack of them in your bag and just every 3 minutes you open your bag, you eat one of them, and you continue on like nothing has actually happened. So it goes from an annoyance to something that doesn't add depth to the gameplay, and at no point is it really a good element that makes the game better. Well, what if food took a lot more effort and time to produce, but lasted a lot longer? Well, then you would have this resource that would actually add depth to the game. You would have to spend some time actually making it, but you wouldn't be on the clock to make it now. You would have a window to work on it. I think that would make Minecraft a better game. Same thing could go to games like Rust, Ark Survival Evolved, DayZ. DayZ, another game I really like, but the damn water meter is always pestering you. Your guy's always, woohoo, aluminum, your guy is always thirsty. No one is that thirsty. No one needs to drink every 20 minutes, otherwise they die of dehydration. Now I realize it's tied in with the game logic and basically how fast the game world rotates, and you got to drink basically once a day or twice a day in order not to dehydrate, which is actually kind of realistic. But sometimes you got to get rid of those logics and just go with what makes for the more enjoyable experience. If I didn't have to drink but once every 3 hours of gameplay in DayZ, I could spend a lot more time engaging with, the combat between other players and all those different elements, but instead I'm constantly hunting for food and water rather than hunting for, interesting encounters I can get into. That one change could really make DayZ a better game. Sure, it would kind of break a little bit of the immersion for some people, but I think for a lot of people they could suspend the disbelief and get beyond that for what would probably, in my opinion, be a better game. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on No Man's Sky. Like I said, I do enjoy it. It's not worth $60. Go ahead when it's on sale for $25 to $30, pick it up. it's there's some enjoyability here. There is like a Zen garden type effect here. It is a very wide ocean but shallow puddle. Why does the ocean puddle? I'm not the one that came up with that. That's been said many times about this game, but it is very apt for what this game is. But for what it is, I do enjoy it. And with some changes, some updates, I think this game could be really cool. They add in some base building, something to drive you forward a little bit more than get to the center. You know, there's some real possibility here. Now, the question is it going to be free DLC or paid DLC? Because, you know, this game literally, it's a lot like Minecraft in the early days, but Minecraft developed out, and it was $25. This was $60. Minecraft developed out for free. This we don't know. It could end up staying free DLC, could end up costing us a whole lot to get the game we actually wanted, and it might never happen. So, who knows? Alright, I think that about does it. Until next time, this has been Paler. Thanks for watching.